So Congressman Fitzpatrick, President Trump is now threatening to institute the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. Do you think that's what the state needs right now?
I think everyone needs to start seeing the humanity in each other.
This is the president making sure, as the secretary indicated, making sure that people are safe, that communities are safe.
We did discuss the Insurrection Act. He certainly has the constitutional authority to utilize that.
Amid yet another shooting and escalating protests in Minneapolis following the killing of Renee Good, President Donald Trump is threatening to send troops to Minnesota using the Insurrection Act. He posted on Truth Social this morning, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in the once great state. Thank you for attention to this matter, President DJT. Invoking the Insurrection Act would allow Donald Trump to put active duty military members on the streets of Minnesota, despite the objections of local leaders. Before we get into the latest updates from Minnesota, Sharon, what is your thoughts here? This is an extremely dangerous next step. Who knows what that might look like, how that would manifest on the streets of Minnesota, and it certainly would only escalate things. So what do you make of it?
I think we have to understand where we are. Donald J. Trump has created chaos. He has damaged people. He has made people sicker, poorer, and their mental health has suffered. But this is a new one. We've watched over the course of the last several days a woman be, I believe, murdered. Okay, no charges brought, no investigation. In fact, we're investigating her partner who witnessed it. We saw and have gotten word of another shooting. And if this goes through, watch out. We will have martial law. We'll have people, bodies on the street. No justice. We are there. We're not kind of there. We're not inching up. We are there. It's a good thing that he's friends with Vladimir Putin, because this is where we are.
Yeah. Just a few examples of how the how this has been used in the past. I mean, there were deployments of the military in the 90s during riots in Los Angeles after the beating of Rodney King. It was used in the civil rights movement when schools were being desegregated, and active duty military members were used to escort people into their school. That's how it has been used in the past, not to intimidate, to crush a protest seeking justice for the murder of somebody by ICE, by a rogue administration. And in the case of Los Angeles, that was requested by the governor. It wasn't just the president sending, it was Bush at the time sending it in to take over, to amplify things. And I think what's worrying here is it seems like tensions are deliberately being escalated to trigger this, to justify this, and that is extremely dangerous and irresponsible for the president to be doing. But Trump's threat comes after another ICE shooting yesterday, this time of an undocumented immigrant. Unfortunately, most of the information we have about the shooting is coming straight from DHS. So personally, I want to see more. I want to know more before I give it much weight, but we'll tell you what they have said. Here's their account of what happened.
DHS says federal officers stopped an immigrant from Venezuela who allegedly resisted arrest. DHS claiming 2 other people joined the struggle, and the original target began striking the officer with, quote, a shovel or broomstick, adding the officer was fearing for his life and fired, hitting the man in the leg.
The agent and the man who was shot are in the hospital, and the other 2 people accused of attacking the agent are in custody. But as the New York Times wrote in the reporting about the incident, the federal government's narrative could not immediately be verified. The Minneapolis police chief suggested at least part of DHS's story was accurate, but at this point, we don't have enough evidence to say exactly what went down. Either way, After the shooting, protests became even more unruly, with ICE agents using flashbangs and pepper spray against demonstrators, some of whom threw fireworks into the line of ICE agents and damaged cars. In one incident of ICE violence, flashbangs and tear gas deployed by officers hit a van and 6 children ended up hospitalized. You could see that headline here. The father, Sean Jackson, said he put his kids in the car to get them out of the neighborhood. Officers threw flashbangs and tear gas in my car. I got 6 kids in the car. My 6-month-old can't even breathe. This was flipped over, Sean said, holding his child's car seat. My car filled with tear gas. I'm trying to pull my kids from the car. And here is footage from the scene.
The ambulance is bringing my newborn out the house because he can't breathe. How long? 6 months. And the officer, I told him I was trying to leave. He fit. It was.
The officer knew you were trying to leave?
Yes, the officer knew I was trying to leave.
The ICE officer?
Yes. He literally saw us trying to leave.
Yeah,
and 3 flashbangs at my car.
In an address to the state last night, Governor Tim Walz called on protesters to stay peaceful, but also slammed the Trump administration and ICE for assaulting and even kidnapping Minnesotans.
Reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live. They're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process. Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets. We cannot give him what he wants. We must protest loudly, urgently, but also peacefully.
While all the local officials in Minnesota urged peaceful protest, despite the Trump administration's claims to the contrary, there are some people who want no real protest at all. Here, conservative Brad Todd tells people who are upset about ICE to just start a Substack.
You peacefully protest in the town square. You peacefully protest with a letter to the editor.
Are they committing violence right now?
You peacefully protest by starting a
letter to
Substack
the
or
editor?
a podcast.
Starting a podcast?
And our colleague Anna Kasparian was on that panel, and you could hear her say, oh my God, because it is, Sharon, a ludicrous proposition. Oh, if you want to protest, just write a letter to the editor. Just start a podcast or a Substack. Do things that we can easily ignore, because I think maybe you might agree, what they ultimately want is for us to just roll over and accept this takeover. What do you make of it?
That's exactly what it's about. And what kind of buffoonery? Who utters such garbage? And that doesn't even mean that podcasts and a letter to the editor is going to be received under this administration, the way the media is looking here. Listen, this Governor Walz is doing a delicate balancing act. You must continue to go out there, protest, have your voices heard. But in doing so, even instructing people to do so peacefully, he knows he is putting Minnesotans in peril, because there's nothing this guy won't do. Like the other cases that you cited where the Insurrection Act was invoked throughout the history of America. That was so cooler heads could prevail. That was welcome. The feds to the rescue. Here it's the opposite. No one's doing anything that deserves any of this. He is he is weaponizing the military against the American people. It's not America anymore. Or maybe it is now by definition. Maybe this is the new definition of America. This is stunning. It's scary. I had a thought, Jordan, that, wow, he's going to send him to Atlanta. So what would I do? Where would I be? What would I tell my daughter? I mean, it's sick. I'm a big mouth. I like to speak truth to power. Would I have the courage to do that? And would someone get hurt? It's exactly what he wanted. It's happening.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's I guess America in name only. This is not I think America should be. I don't think it's what a majority of Americans think America should be. And we see polling to justify that, to explain that. I mean, ICE's approval rating is underwater by 20% or 20 points across the board. Of course, that's a vast majority of Democrats and most independents. There is a majority of people who disapprove of ICE, and there's a plurality of people who want ICE abolished. This isn't a beloved institution or agency. It's a relatively new one, and the people who only seem to like it are Republicans. And when you see what ICE is doing, if you can strip your partisan framework or lens from it and just look at it objectively and imagine what you would think if the other party was in power, I'd imagine a lot of Republicans would be upset by this. If a federal agent shot someone in the head, shot a teenager, I think more of them would be upset, but because it's their guy doing it, and because especially in Minnesota, this whole thing is couched in this Somali fraud, bogus narrative, they're okay with it. One day the boot's gonna be on your neck. And what you do now, I think, reflects how you will be treated in that moment. At least it should. Sharon, before we get to our next story, any final thoughts?
No, listen, I think it's one thing to try to appeal to the decency of people who would root this on. By now, Jordan, we've all seen enough. We've seen enough to go ahead and make a decision about where we stand on this issue. So if we can't hit them with that, in the heart, some kind of a moral check, hit them in the wallet. This institution, this ICE agency has ballooned to like $85 billion, 30% of the Homeland Security budget, 0.5% of our entire budget. For what? People want immigration to be done orderly, respectfully. We don't want, people who are, whatever he said, coming down that escalator. But at the end of the day, by and large, that wasn't happening. That wasn't happening to justify this enormous expense. So if people can't be moved by a woman murdered after dropping off her 6-year-old son while we were able to watch her final moments, start with the money. Just start with the money.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.